Thank you guys for being here. Thanks to our panelists for joining in. So we'll just start off, like I said earlier, if you are just joining in, I need everyone that is not a panelist to have their sound off. At the end of the discussion, you guys will have a chance to ask your questions to the panel. The chat is also open, so you can drop your questions in there as well. So we can get started with introductions. So hi everyone, I'm Amber Jackson and I am the owner and culture curator of the Black Leaf Tea and Culture Shop. I am from Chicago. I currently reside in Providence, Rhode Island for my full-time job. So I formulate and design loose leaf tea blends. The website is theblackleaftea.com, and I also get to host dope events like this to curate spaces and conversations for people to share their thoughts and opinions. So I'm excited to do this. I'll just call on them as I see them in my row. So Mary, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi everyone. My name is Mary Palac. My pronouns are she, her. I live in San Jose, California. I'm a bartender at a bar called Paper Plane. I've been in the hospitality industry for over half my life now, going on like 16 years. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here and to join in the discussion. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I was trying to. Thank you.
I was like, "Was it me?"
It's me. My bad. For the next person, Mike, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Michael. I live here in Providence. I work at a few bars, but I haven't worked at a few bars since, obviously, because of COVID. I also am the founder of Base. We curate some pop-up bars in undisclosed areas, and we work with other small places so we can try to get people of color into the room and introduce them to the cocktail scene. And I also run mixer cocktails, which is a cocktail box to order to your house or for a gift that I run out with my girlfriend. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Raeghn, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi all, I'm Raeghn. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I'm here today living in Chicago. Currently furloughed server, but I've been in the industry for 11 years. I have back of the house experience. I originally got involved as wanting to be a pastry chef, so my background is in pastry. But I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. The next one that I have from my row is Brandon. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Puckett. Currently reside in Providence, Rhode Island. Coming from South Jersey. And I've been in the hospitality industry for about 11 years now, more or less. Currently one of two sous chefs at North Restaurant in downtown Providence. And shout out Steven. And I'm just excited to be here and participate in this discussion and conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Leishla, please go ahead.
Hey guys, my name is Leishla. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am from Boston, but I currently live in Providence. I work at the Eddy in downtown, one of my favorite cocktail bars in the city because I work there. I have a bias. I've been doing a lot of work as far as talking about the racism in the hospitality industry for a long time. So I'm really, really excited to be a part of this conversation. So thank you so much, Amber, for selecting this great group of people.
Thank you. Let me see. Natasha.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Natasha. So happy to be here and so happy to see so many people on this call. I am residing in Chicago. I just moved here in January to take here, and I lived in Providence for many years before I came here. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here. Like I said, I hope everyone coming in has their own drinks. We are ready for this conversation. So I want to start off by asking you guys about your own experience with representation, because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of people don't feel like they belong in a space, or they don't feel like success is attainable in certain spaces because they oftentimes don't see themselves in those spaces. So I wanted to ask you guys, how many of you, when you started learning and owning your craft, how many of you had someone that looked like you actually instructing you? Anyone?
Not I. I did not have one. I didn't have a 6'2" guy, black dude with dreads. I didn't have someone who looked like Brendan at all. Or myself.
There were very few women, if any, women of color in leadership when I first started bartending. I think it was towards the early stages of our like cocktail renaissance, and the only way you saw a like mixologist or a cocktail bartender represented was like a white dude with a mustache or a beard and like suspenders. And that was actually my uniform, I think, in my first like fancy cocktail bar too. I also had to look like that.
Damn, they made you put the mustache on too.
Yeah, I'm even trying to think of like higher up positions, like positions of leadership. My entire career, I've had one black manager, and he lasted for like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of that. I've had no woman of color, mostly white or white identifying in management positions, or the majority of the people around me. And I think that my only employers have been Hispanic or Latin men. So I've never had myself anybody that represented what and who I am.
Yeah, and I feel like that echoes across more boards outside of just, hospitality. My background is academically is in science, so even in STEM. So people ask like, oh, when did you have your first black teacher? But me being different from Southside Chicago, so Chicago is super segregated. So in my neighborhood, it's completely all black. And so that's what I grew up with. But when I went to college, I went to the largest institute in Tennessee, which is MTSU. And so I was, as a STEM major, I had one. And he was my anatomy and physiology professor who I had to retake it as trying to be an overachieving freshman. He got it, but because he was also a former athlete like I was as well. But to have someone that in your profession, your line of work, that does not look like you. I had teachers that just kind of pushed me aside because it didn't matter to them. But even as my one and only black professor, he took his time with us. My other teammates as well, and people in the class was like, hey, I want you guys to do well in this. He was the only one that took his time with us and actually took his time to actually care about our progression, our advancement. So I think that definitely echoes into other fields outside of hospitality as well, which is quite sad. But what was it in your earlier stages that made you feel you could continue on with this even without the representation that was there, or was not there? Excuse me.
Well, for me, I think I found hospitality as most people did. I found bartending as like a fun, very well-paying like side job to help pay for school when I was younger, right? I think a lot of people find hospitality that way. And then I realized that I was focusing less on my education and more on the fun aspect. So like I actually stopped going to school, and I figured, well, this is at least this is a lucrative job while I figure things out. And instead of figuring things out, I found community. I found a different kind of education that I hadn't before. And it was, I think what got to me and why I fell in love with it was that it was accessible. Like I could do well, I could be talented in this industry without a ton of barriers. And even though there weren't a ton of, like, a lot of my mentors or trainers or people who've had really positive effects on my life, even though like I'm really grateful for what I learned, a lot of them didn't just offer that. I had to go seek it out. But even then, like I said, it's accessible, and that's what attracted me to it.
Yeah, for me, I guess when people ask why you chose this industry, it always kind of makes me cringe because they're usually like, oh, this industry chose me kind of thing. But it's just not true. Like for non-BIPOC, for non-BIPOC, we just don't have that same luxury of just running into something and it working out for them. So we have to try to fit in and try to speak the same language and do the same, I'll make all the same movement, try to understand the food being served when it's like completely different than what we're used to culturally, try to navigate power structures that don't include us. It takes a lot of energy. So, I mean, I chose this industry because it was a means to survival, purely just surviving this world as, at the time, a single mother and a high school dropout. Like, I didn't have anything going for me. And it's like, it's interesting because every day we like fight to be relevant when we aren't trending. And I chose to stay here because it's like flawed structure and my desire and fight to like make it better. So I wouldn't say that the industry chose me. I've been in this industry for over 10 years now. And I can't say it's been some kind of joyous experience. It wasn't enlightening in ways that lots of people describe it. It made me better. I suffered, we suffered mental, emotional, and in my case, sometimes even physical abuse at almost every single one of my employers' hand. So mentally, we battle these demons every day that make us feel like we're not good enough to be in the same room at the same table as people around us. A system that was built by brown people, really Black people. But all in all, I'm here right now because it's right and it needs fixing, and I want to be a part of its restructure.
Awesome. I just want to echo what Leishla just said. I think as the hospitality industry, it's really thought of as always having jobs, always having openings. And I think that's rooted in the fact that, in restaurants and hospitality, they're so open to, exploiting people, in various ways. And, for myself, echoing those same sentiments, going into the industry was, it was my first job in the industry, working at a fast casual place at a restaurant. And then, from there, every single job after has been, in the same fashion. And it's always been about survival. It's always been about, having to fend for myself. But in that, you find a love for making people happy and making food for people and seeing a smile on their face and bringing people together, and those experiences and the people that you meet along the way. So, that's one of my sentiments, and, I totally feel what you were just saying.
It sounds like a lot of code switching is required in this kind of environment as well. We kind of have to, you gotta read the room and fit the room, and code switching is exhausting. Having to constantly filter yourself and audit yourself to make sure that the people that employ you are comfortable. It's a lot of work and it is exhausting. Now, going into the actual part of racism and the hospitality, would any of you feel comfortable now speaking about your own experiences with that?
I would say, I don't have one outlier episode of racism in the hospitality industry, and I guess not that I need one, because it's still prevalent every single day. And I think when we talk about things like relationships, power structure, or when Mary talks about what every bartender, what they thought was supposed to look like the white, just typecast white guys, and I think. And kind of tying it into the last question too, because I didn't really chime in, is what kind of makes me keep or wanting to do this. I've been in the hospitality industry for 5 years now, and I would say that what keeps me going is is walking into places and only being one or two of the people who look like me. So myself and one other person who are the only Black people in the room, and walking I wanted to be in places where people look like me, walk like me, talk like me, and all that stuff too. So I think that's what my racism experiences are, was just those barriers. You can just tell just walking into places, and that's just kept me going the whole time. It's how can we create spaces for everyone to enjoy?
I kind of feel a lot like what Michael was saying, that I can't think of like one example of racism, but when I think about that question, what are instances, it just makes me feel exhausted, because I just think of those days where, you know, it was taking a mental and emotional toll on me, and I had to suck it up, you know. And I think I've had overt comments of racism, but I've also like had the other side of it where I'm tokenized, where I'm the Black person who's expected to speak for all Black people. And if I do speak on like my Blackness, well, then I'm seen as aggressive, or then I'm seen as opinionated and argumentative inside the workplace. And there's also the dynamic between like the racism and microaggressions we face within our job and with our coworkers and our leaders. But then there's also the other side of it when we're public facing, and that power structure that we face from our guests. So it's sometimes really exhausting to turn around and on one hand, your job is treating you one way, and then the people that you're supposed to be taking care of and showing hospitality and kindness to are also treating you that way as well.
Because like, even if you, like, not to jump in, but like, even if on my best day, I'm a bartender, but like, on my best day, I'm a good bartender, but before that, I'm still a Black bartender. I still have to worry about being Black. Like, right. In the kitchen, in front of the house, in front of everyone, and you still have to deal with all that stuff too. And like, they never let you forget it. And not that I ever want to forget it, because I want to wear that shit on my sleeve every day. I mean, I don't have a choice, and that's good that I don't have a choice, because I want to do that. But like, regardless if you're having a good day or a bad day, you still have to be that. I still have to be a Black person before anything.
And it's not on anyone else to treat you like an other. It's on you to wear your Blackness and to be proud of it, but it's not for anyone else, especially a non-Black person, to other you and to remind you that, like, hey, you're something different.
Yeah. I'd say I absolutely agree. And it's not like I have a completely different experience as an Asian American person, obviously. But it's those little everyday cuts that we all have to face. And we're also facing it. For me, it's especially on like the public safety side, where you have to kind of, this industry has conditioned us all to suck it up, right? To not hinder the guest experience. Even though, like, for me, the thing I get probably asked, or I did when I was still bartending with real people in front of me, the thing that I would often get asked that was like the trigger was, what are you? And I feel like that is so dehumanizing, that first word, what? And it took a really long time to figure out how to address that. And like Raeghn was saying, it was exhausting because it was just bottling up every day. Because it's not that big a deal, right? You think it's like, oh, it's just this little thing. You can let it go. You can move on. You have bigger things to worry about. But compound that every day for years, and it festers inside of you.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
Like a seed.
I mean, I'd love to like piggyback off of all of that. I mean, I remember I used to come home after work from the Eddy, and which is a great place. Like, all the people there are super supportive, and my manager is like incredible. But the people there, when I would leave work, I would come home and I would tell my boyfriend, like, for some reason, I feel tired, and like not tired from working and shaking and doing all those things. I'm tired and I don't want to talk. And it would take me like 4 days to get back outside and to do my laundry, and for like weeks at a time. And I just couldn't handle the conversations of exactly that, like, asking me what I am, or like dehumanizing me. People that would like try to navigate around me instead of talking to me because they don't feel confident in me making anything for them because I'm the only brown person in the room. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I do want to share a story that I felt really, if I can, that I felt like was necessary to share, because not only was it one of my experiences with my employers, but it was one that I didn't even think about as being racist until years later, until I began to like understand what racism was and how it was directed towards me. But all right, so about 5 or 6 years ago, I worked at a spot in the South End. I shared this story a little bit earlier this week, but I think it's still relevant. Obviously, it's my experience. But it was way out of my comfort zone, and I was still like really only eating tacos and pupusas, which is like what I'm used to in my culture, like in my life. And I only kind of hung out with the people in my circle. And I remember walking in and seeing the menu and was like wondering what the hell a poutine was, and wondering why there was mac and cheese on a burger. And I was like, oh, this place is legit. But even before that, I remember trying on a ton of different clothing, like outfits. And I ended up wearing, I'll never forget, I wore a shirt that I actually wore to court once, and some like really shiny shoes. And I was like way overdressed for this interview, but I didn't know what being professional was. I didn't know what that looked like. And I just like had this image that you're supposed to wear like a collared shirt and nice and shiny shoes. So whatever, I got hired. I was really nice at first, but people started leaving and we had crazy turnover. And 6 months later, you know, I realized I was one of their oldest employees, and we had hired a new chef and a general manager. So things were starting to change. The restaurant became a little more militant, but at the same time, it became really cliquey, which happens in a lot of restaurants. It's like if you are not out drinking late at night or hanging out past closing time, like you're not part of the crew. But I was just like not about that, because I had a daughter, and I'm just like really not about the interpersonal relationships in spaces, because it's like a goal for me to just kind of like, I'll have interpersonal relationships, but there's a separation. Like I need my time too. Anyway, all of the turnover meant like more ordering and paperwork. They were always a mess. So each night the chef asked us to jot down what we'd need for service the next day, and I'd hand it to him before the deadline the next night. And when I was on bar on a really busy night, I forgot. So I jotted it down really quickly, and I ran over to the kitchen and I told him, hey, this is what we need. He forced me to stand there, and he read off each ingredient. And once he got to ginger, which we had happened to have downstairs but I didn't see, he grabbed the paper and he smacked me in the face. Yeah. Every single one of the white employees standing in the kitchen did not say one word. We were crazy busy, and I didn't know how to defend myself, and I ran to the bathroom and I cried, and then I went back because it was what was expected of me.
Right.
So that night, I'm like, he's lucky that I wasn't still like trying to throw hands with everybody that ever touched me. But instead I ended up just like emailing my management and asking her for a meeting. But again, I wasn't kind of part of this crew, so the way that she approached it was very like demeaning, and she made me feel pretty terrible about kind of telling on him. So a couple days later, the owner ended up having us both sit there, and he apologized to me for about 30 seconds. And then, you know, the owner apologized to me for him for like another couple minutes. And then they had me sign a paper that basically implies I'm not going to be suing for him putting his hands on me. There was no recourse. Like, I know this may not, at first, it didn't scream racism to me. But it's obviously these instances that are the most problematic. And if like you can't see that, that's a privilege that needs to be addressed, and like that's all right, address it. But white power and privilege is exactly that. It's like ingrained in a lot of people, whether or not they want to see it. And I worked with a ton of other white servers and bartenders, but in that situation, like he didn't feel the need to ever get aggressive with any of them. He got no consequences. He got no recourse. Like nothing ever happened to him. He actually was promoted to an executive chef soon after that. Yeah, like in this industry, in many industries, like in this country, like white folks have been made to feel like there are no consequences to their actions, and they have been validated for a long time. So like we need to dismantle these power structures. We need to point out the problematic behavior. Like we are not lesser than thou because of the color of our skin, period. Yeah, I don't know. That's wow. Sorry, I just but.
No, like, girl, I have cousins from Chicago that would have driven down that night. That would have been handled. Please. And the fact that anyone felt it was appropriate to put your hands on someone else, like that is, whether it's you or anyone else, it's just flat out inappropriate. And then for higher management to go to, you could go to them and just be completely nonchalant and dismissive about it. Say even more about how they felt about you in that environment as well. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird because I think this is the second time that I've actually said this out loud versus just like me writing it out. So it like feels very raw still, but I don't know. I mean, it's systemically like a thing that you feel like you're going to be able to get away with this. So he thought he had more power than I did, and they still do. Like a lot of people still do feel like they have more power over me because of and power over us because of the color of our skin and like where we're from or how we talk or like our background. I don't know, everything. I'm tired, man.
But even going back to what a few of the other panelists were saying, just how exhausting code switching is in that space. When you think about what humanity is and just to be a basic, decent human being, like, yes, everyone deserves to be respected and protected. Just basic decency. And in a space where you do have minorities in a predominantly white space, yes, you are obligated to protect your minority employees because we do have different experiences. And because once again, as women of color, we are constantly having to go out of our way, once again, code switching to not seem aggressive. Because if I defend myself, that's gonna be held against me as, oh, she's being aggressive, or in the future, she's hard to work with. But I'm still defending myself upon your aggressive, inappropriate behavior. And you had the audacity to ask me to sign a paper saying that I won't sue because you did not take the appropriate actions as a manager, as my manager. Your job is to protect me in situations like this, and you chose to protect yourself. And it's extremely, it's sad. And I'm so happy that's sorry that happened to you. But in the future, I got cousins, girl.
I mean,
I too.
Leishla, can I ask how old are you when that happened? Like,
this was 5 years ago, so I was 23.
You were like just breaking into the industry, and there's that part of it, like not having built up the courage, experience, language to stand up for yourself in those instances, or that coupled with our culture of this industry of like sucking it up and toughing it out because we just accept that that's part of our culture of this industry. We're the servants to the fancy people, and
I mean, I feel like we always end up feeling in situations like this. Like at first, we end up like blaming ourselves for not like working hard enough or not finding that language and like feeling like we shouldn't be who we are because like industry didn't accept us or viewed us as problematic whenever we did speak out. But like, I mean, we've got a lot of groundwork to cover, and I'm here to change. Like I'm with y'all to change this because this shit's just like, I'm tired, you're tired, we're tired. This shit's not okay.
Yeah. I then want to use that to lead into my next question of how did you, now that you're further into the industry, how did you find a mentor? How did you learn to advocate for yourself in your position?
Yes,
that's for anyone. Yeah.
I'll let someone else answer first.
So I'll answer that, and by answering that, I'll say that I don't know that I know how to advocate for myself in my current position. I think that's something that a lot of people of color, a lot of young people are still figuring out how to do, especially after everything that's been happening recently and the fact that COVID has kind of amplified everything, and people are tense, people are this, people are that, people lost their jobs, people lost some of their income, and in my position, I've been here since January, and I am on the corporate chef team. I'm the only woman in the office, of about 70 people. I'm one of maybe 5 people of color, and it's really hard, to talk. Last week my HR manager came out and said we're starting a diversity initiative, but what does that mean? and and how are you going to apply our voices, and are you going to reach out and ask for me to educate you, not me as in me, but as in people of color and the very few that are at our company. And if I hear or see something or have been treated a certain way, what do you do? I was in a situation where a person said a racial slur, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was definitely it took me aback, but what do you say? Is it on me to educate them to say, oh, it's not okay to say that? Like, I don't know what you thought, but that's not okay. And if that person's a manager, if that person's a higher up, what do you do? What do you say? How do you advocate? I think it's hard to find a mentor and to find somebody to teach you how to navigate these things when there's no one. Not when there's no one, but when there's very few. And the people that you do encounter, they're busy. They have so many things going on, and at the same time, me or anyone that is looking at the situation says, wow, I don't really want to take up too much of anyone's time with something that may seem trivial to them. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely probably not the answer you were looking for, but that's something that I live being in the position that I'm in right now every day.
You feel like Lord, my words. I feel like you bring up a very interesting point where a lot of my friends are being asked to join their company's diversity and inclusion initiative now for free. There is no extra pay with this. Like, I think a lot of people have to understand, as people of color, as Black men, Black women, Black people, people of color, that's a lot of emotional labor.
Yeah.
A lot of revisiting of trauma. That is exhausting, and how unfair it is to ask your employees to educate you now that you need to save face.
Exactly.
And it's a lot of work, and I haven't, but a lot of my friends are just being like, hey, yeah, I'm like, you know what? Well, because they're asking me, it's like, you can't get fired for being honest when you ask my opinion. So like, let the chopper sing. But I don't think a lot of people understand how heavy it is to revisit that kind of trauma for you to save face. And I think it's also the very point where people always ask for a diversity and inclusion initiative, but they also forget the end point, which is equity. So diversity and inclusion are action points. They're stepping stones to get to the point of equity. And people, they often forget that last part. So like you said, Natasha, like you asked my opinion, but what is actually going to change? What actions are you guys going to do, implement into the culture of your restaurant, your bar, your corporation? What are you actually going to do to ensure that I have a fair chance, the people that look like me, that come from under me, have a fair chance? And so, what time is it? Okay, we're good on time. I do want to ask, Brandon, you say anything?
Yeah, I was going to say, just piggybacking off that, I think that kind of goes into hiring practices, and this is something I didn't quite understand until recently, but, not always hiring the best person, if that makes sense, like the person with the most amount of skills, because, you can teach skills, or there's a certain set of skills you can teach and some that you can't. So, for example, just because somebody's the fastest doesn't mean that they're the best for your establishment, whatever that may be. You have to look at like meshing with people that you already have on your team and your staff. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like those, like, when companies or jobs are like trying to make like, or saying that they're going to do like diversity initiatives, it's like, to me, it's like, I don't know, it's like, I don't want to hear that you're doing that. Like, I want to see that you're doing that, because to me, it's like, so you were either always like complicit with what was going on, or you just never gave a shit. And now it's like that you're trying to save face. Now that you're trying to do this, and like to ask us is kind of like, to ask us to be a part of these things is kind of like a slap in the face. So like, honestly, for me, it's like, I don't even want to like hear it. I don't want to see companies or restaurants emails to us. I don't want to see anything because I don't want to see words. I want to just see the action. And like Brandon just said, it's like, it doesn't like, I want to see it through hiring. I want to see it through just through the work, as opposed to just like saying that you're going to do something and then asking us to do it. I don't think it's fair at all. And it's just also like, well, you didn't give a shit before, so why should you care now? Like, not that why should you care now, but I don't know, maybe I'm a little standoffish, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't sit right with me.
Just to echo that, like, even now with everything that's going on, it's, I don't know if it's the right word, but it almost seems trendy for places to be doing all these different.
100% is trendy. 100% is trendy. You know, it's trendy. Like, that's what's going to get them likes, and that's still going to get people to
Exactly.
you know, like, and that's what's so hard about these space, like everything too. It's like, unless, like, we deal with it every single day. Like we said, like, even if days when we're not in hospitality, like, you still got to deal with racism. It just so happens that this collective group of panelists also work in the restaurant industry, you know? But when you have to deal with that stuff every single day, it's just kind of, I don't know, I just like lost a train of thought. I excuse myself.
No, I get where you're going, because like you said,
it's just so frustrating.
we are Black, we're people of color every single day. Before this current wave of social justice and protest and the more publicized killings of Black men and women, we have been Black, we've been people of color. And so it is somewhat of a slap in the face to just say, now we're going to do this. But there was zero incentive to do so before. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. But for the ones that are actually actively doing the work, I think we do have to recognize them. Because you do see some people actually put some action in, but you do have a large portion of people that are, like you said before, trying to save face. And I actually spoke with Leishla about this earlier last week, I think, about how one like local magazine, they put a list of Black-owned businesses out in their magazine. I think it was a week after George Floyd was murdered, and they didn't contact anyone. A friend of mine who was also on the list, sent it to me, and I'm looking for my name. I'm like,
I remember that list.
They gave me a whole different name. I'm like, the basic respect you can give me in my business is to at least get my name right. And they got a few details wrong. My homegirl that's also in there, she does cakes. And they say, yeah, she does ice cream cones. So she's like, no, I do cake pops in the form of ice cream cones. And so basic information that they could have gotten right if they actually cared enough to actually talk to us and hear our stories and get it correct. It was very, very simple things that they could have got it right. And they got my name wrong. You can literally read my logo. That is my name. The to the shop. That is my name. It's a little long, but it's my name. But you know, so this was like something like that, like just trying to rush and put things up because, you know, at today's age, cancel culture is real. And no one wants to be that one person that didn't say something as fast as they thought they should have. But I think we do have to take the time to acknowledge the people that are actually out here doing the work that are actually advocating. I tell people all the time, I do not like the word ally. I don't like it because I feel like too many times.
The word ally? No.
Because I feel like too many people use that word as a form of entitlement, where I don't do this, so I should get to be in these kind of spaces. I should be involved in these kind of conversations. Like, no. As people of color, everyone deserves their own space to themselves if they want to. And advocates are people that actually do the work. They're actually pushing for policy and actual change. Be an advocate. You can have all the bumper stickers and the T-shirts and the buttons, but when you are silent, that speaks louder than your bumper stickers.
I think to tag on to that, I think 100% the people that just jump on like an action without really thinking of it when it's like really performative, a lot of them are afraid of the cancel culture, right? They're afraid of being held truly accountable. And it was something that stuck in my brain from the coffee panel from Gimme Brown a few weeks back, was when Tamika Lawrence said, accountability is a gift. If someone's holding you accountable to give you the chance to change, that's telling you that they care enough about you that they want to see you grow. They're not. It's not a call out to, like, kill your business or your publication or whatever. It is a chance for you to do better. So like that publication, by just putting out a list so quickly with getting all the details wrong, it's crazy to me, because that's coming from this like fear of being held truly accountable. But I was going to say, like, on a note on what you're saying about being an advocate, something that like I'm still figuring out, and like what Natasha was saying, like how to advocate for yourself. It's, everyone said like put your own mask on first, and that has to go there too. You have to learn how to stand up for yourself and your own humanity before you can bring others up, because you won't be able to. You can't carry that burden if you're not whole. So like how we start to really break these cycles is within ourselves, I think.
Definitely.
I agree.
Awesome. All right, so I want to move to the last part of this. So after all is said and done, so once again, I get so annoyed because people have panels all the time and they can toss to their blue. What are we going to do? So what can we actively do to, in our positions, to advocate for people coming up under us? How do we create spaces and opportunities for young people of color in the industry, wanting to join the industry, to actually to advance in this industry? Because going back to representation, a lot of times people do not feel like they belong in a space, or they do not feel like that a success is attainable because they do not see people that look like them in those spaces, or they just don't know how to get in. Especially considering, hospitality is not just restaurants and bars, it's hotels, it's casinos, cruise ships, event planning. And so you do have, I think it's interesting. So I found, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 HBCUs that have hospitality and tourism management majors. And so how do we actually say like, hey, and there's countless culinary schools as well. So how do we advocate within our space for people of color to feel seen, to feel protected, to feel like they actually have a chance to get ahead and be in these spaces?
I think the first thing is for everyone here to continue to keep doing the work that we have been doing. I think that's like the first things first, and like what Mary just said too is like we need to focus on ourselves and make sure that we're complete too before we can start lifting everyone too. But it's continue to do the work, and then also to kind of like a little radical thinking with the whole cancel culture and people like looking for things to do is like, I think now that we're in this position where people are feeling like, oh, what can I do? What can I do? Please, I'm not one of them. I can help you guys. Please. I think like, yo, like excuse my language, like, yo, fuck it, let's call them out on it and let's ask for the things that we want.
Hold on, Mike, you're a little muffled.
Yeah.
Okay,
you're a little muffled. Say again.
What about now? Can you guys hear me now?
That's better.
All right. I was gonna say, like, let's just start asking for the things that we want. I don't think we don't need to beat around the bush anymore, or like we have wonderful ideas, we have the talent. So it's like continue to just do what we're doing and just be a little bit aggressive too. Like, fuck, we own this space too. You're not gonna tell me otherwise. You're either gonna fire me because I was acting aggressive because I've been advocating for myself, and then like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna go to the local news source and everyone's gonna cancel you out anyway. So like, I think we have leverage right now in this. I don't know how long it's gonna be until things are gonna change, but we have leverage. And I think we need to use it.
We have less to lose right now. Most of us we're all unemployed anyway. What do you have to stand up for yourself? Someone said that in another group that I was in. I was like, I don't know, like I'm really not feeling this communication with. I'm not feeling safe with my employers, and it's like, well, now's the time, because what are they going to fire you? We're at home.
We're playing about house money right now, so I think we just need to like just fucking do it, and then just continue to be again like push our ideas. Like I still like when I do. When we do our pop-up, I do my pop-up parties, like, I still just really want to work with Black, I still want to work with just only Black people. Fuck it, or I just only want to work with people of color because, like, like, we can create these spaces, because sometimes I feel like I don't need to, like, work with white people to validate what I'm doing or what we're doing. We can do what we want to do without having to be in some fancy ass spot. It's like, yo, we think this place is cool. So I think we just need to just keep doing what we're doing.
I totally agree. I would also I also think we need fundamental change. Like, we need policy change within the hospitality industry. We need policies that are going to protect our Black community right now that are being rampaged by COVID-19. And those in power within our industry are chefs and bartenders and owners. They have political power. And if we can convince them to use their political power for the benefit of the Black and brown folks that are the backbone of this industry and make it what it is, then that's going to benefit all of us. I would also say that, like, I'm very annoying when it's hiring season at my job, and I'm just like, have any Black people applied? Have you hired any Black people? Have you interviewed any Black people? I can post. I'm very annoying in hiring time. I'm like, I know some Black people. I can send them their way. I'll post on like any groups, any Black and brown groups on like social media that I'm a part of. I'm like, hey, my job's hiring. Like, I'm not afraid. I will always be willing to give a Black person my name to put down a resume as a reference. I will always, always, always do that. And I would also advocate for other people to do that. If you know a Black or brown person that needs a job and your place is hiring, put your name forward. That's a huge, once you're in the industry and you know people in other restaurants, like, that's huge. You can get hired just from knowing somebody.
That's so key.
Yeah, I would definitely advocate for that. And then, I would also have, like, in Chicago, obviously we're very segregated. Let's have more hospitality events on the fucking South Side, on the West Side. Why are all of the hospitality events in these white ass gentrified? I'm sorry.
Yeah, in the Gold Coast, downtown somewhere.
Those aren't accessible to our people. We need hospitality events that are accessible for our people so that they can get to them and they can network and they can meet people and they can get the free spirits that we're all tasting.
And that's yeah. Even like I'm from Southside, I'm from Inglewood, I'm from Southside Chicago, and so in my neighborhood, as far as like hospitality, it was like corner stores and liquor stores. Whereas more like now, it's changed so much because you have neighborhoods like Bronzeville, who was the Black business hub of Chicago. You see a push in that area, but like you said, even with yesterday was supposed to be the Silva Room Block Party in Hyde Park, and so you do have those small bits of people and small groups doing huge things. But how do we amplify that? I think is another step beyond that. Like you said, you only see, River North on Hubbard Street. That's where you see a lot of these big name bars and RPM on the water. So you like you said, actually amplifying those things, amplifying those spaces outside of those neighborhoods, and the people that live there as well. I think one other thing, that you all have done individually as well, and one of the reasons why I know who you are, you've established your individual brand. So even outside of the places that you work, you yourself, Mary, Raeghn, Mike, Leishla, Brandon, Natasha, you guys you've established your own brand. And thank God for social media in some ways. You're able to amplify that on your own. So once, I think, like you said, absolutely advocating for people, and when you're like you say hiring season, advocating for those people to as you consider, like, hey, I see your pool here. There is not a single Black, brown, Asian person in this group. Call them out when you can see it, because like you said, you can't be fired for saying, hey, you have no people of color on here. I think it's important to actually open your mouth and speak loudly and advocating. And I think Mike said it earlier, I might be wrong, but I think Mike said it too, being bold in your ask. A lot of us are very timid because we're unsure what's in your representation. I think we have to be timid. Like, I don't know, I don't want to rock the boat too much, but no, being bold in your ask. I honestly, in the hospitality, I've yet to meet one timid white person. If they want something, they want this. I want it. That is it. They don't care. But we are constantly so timid in how we kind of move. But you have to be audacious. You have to be to actually advocate for yourself.
Really do.
And it's you don't want to rock the boat too, especially like kind of new to the industry or new to a certain establishment.
No, because we don't want to lose our jobs.
Right. You don't want to, but the thing is, like, look, it's just like, but no one's going to advocate for you more than you.
They're not going to give it to us.
Right.
There's also something now that I've kind of moved up in the industry and I started figuring out my role as a leader in the community, and I'm navigating leadership circles. Like I'm starting to participate in like planning committees and things like that. And when I first started on it, I was just like, oh, I'm just so happy to be here.
Just so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to be included. And then I think of it, then I look at the bigger picture and I'm like, I'm the only non-white person on this committee. So then, and I think the gift that COVID has given us, which is like, to Mike's point about like, yeah, we have less to lose, is I've lost a lot of filters and I've found the courage to challenge everything that I see. And I'm like, well, have we thought about this? You know, you guys are all viewing this from a very specific lens. We are not a complete perspective because of this. So I think that's really important that once you start to navigate those circles, to not be afraid to challenge everything. Because like I'm volunteering on these committees, you know, and I get so afraid. But first I was so afraid about like my reputation and my career. Like, I'm doing this for free. Why shouldn't I actually say what I think? Why shouldn't I actually help the people that need the light shine on them?
And
no, go ahead.
About being kind of bold in our ask. Recently, I reached out to a restaurant in Rhode Island that I really enjoy, and to kind of keep it short, essentially, I asked them, you know, why they hadn't had any type of outreach or on social media representation about current events or anything that's been happening. More or less, just because I kind of wanted to know where they stood, and you know, I got a really nice response back, but it was nice only in the fact that I got a response back. It was the answer in and of itself was kind of a weak, if you will. It was kind of like a cop-out, like, well, you know, we're a business and you know, we got to keep social media just to update people about the business specifically and how we feel about X, Y, and Z.
We don't want to lose our white dollars.
That's really what it was. To strip away the sugarcoating, they didn't want to lose and their clientele. I've noticed is I think that was the reason they didn't want to lose their.
But
I'll say it, bro.
But even then, it's just kind of it's disheartening because I'm sure that at some point you gain Black dollars.
Right.
We darken your doorstep, but you don't want to rock the boat. But the thing is, like, that in itself is a sense of privilege, where you can not say anything because you feel like you have to protect this. But God, what about the possible Black person who works there? The Black person that sits down at the table at your bar. As a Black woman, like, I would personally be offended. Especially this is now what month? This is two full months after George Floyd's death, and Breonna Taylor's was before his, and Ahmaud Arbery was back in January, but we didn't find out till a month later.
Right.
It's disheartening, but you know, the constant everything's for $1. This is America. It's a capitalist country. People will do whatever they have to do to protect a dollar, but where do you stand on protecting the people that give you their dollar? The people that might work in your kitchen, behind your bar.
I mean, comfort is a privilege.
Hold on, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Do you guys mind if I just add to, I think, the point before, kind of like talking about steps to take to create better and like more equitable spaces? Just because like I have so many different conversations happening at the same time about this. I've had brands reach out to me to talk to me about what avenue to go because they felt stunted by some type of whatever, or like I've had local businesses ask me about it. But I think just like I want to lay it out flat. We need to stop hiring off of meritocracy, period. I get it. You're a small business. You got to make ends meet. You want to hire BIPOC, but they aren't applying. How are you making yourself approachable? Like how? You can say it, you can yell it all you want, but if I don't understand what your establishment is, if I don't understand what it's serving, and the majority of folks in there are white, how am I going to feel comfortable? How are we going to feel comfortable about pushing ourselves to fill out that application? Like I'm assuming that I'm already denied a spot because I don't look like anybody that you're putting out there. And like, if you're having an issue finding these folks, then you need to take a hard look at your systems that you've already got in place. Like, what is the message you're sending? Is your place only hospitable when you're there? If you are questioning your inclusivity when you are not there, that's the work you need to do. There are so many restaurants that I know want to do this work, and I see you and I appreciate you, but like, the problem isn't that people aren't applying. The problem is we aren't applying because there's something about it that still doesn't make us feel comfortable or welcome. So like, you want to hire more people of color, do the work, go to high schools, put up an ad for internship to seniors. You want, like, we got tons of high schools and aspiring chefs and owners here. We have like one of the best culinary schools in Rhode Island, or in the country, in Rhode Island. Yeah. Like, go work with social groups that help build connections with older students in disinvested areas. Network outside of your social circle. Like, find spaces that challenge your ideas. Like, a lot of business owners aren't doing that. And they need to recognize their own exclusivity and like break down those walls. We need to lessen the interview standards and creating a real dialogue in these interviews. Like, I know this is already done. Like, it's no longer, it's not like, oh, you know, where did you work before and what was your biggest achievement and blah blah blah. Like, I know that work is already being done, but it's crucial to keep it going, because professionalism, like I said earlier, is something that we all interpret differently. And we need to put these leaders in place that understand that there are different ways to approach these things, and if they don't, then find someone who does. And I think the last one, sorry, I'm ranting because I was thinking about this like a lot.
Go ahead, Rachel. Go off.
And my pina colada ran out, but like, mentorship. I'm not talking about the mentorship that we're used to, like the chef culture, the aggressive mentorship that is low-key abusive. Like, we really need to dig deep into these processes, and like, oftentimes in this industry, this is a BIPOC's entry into the workforce. So statistically, a lot of us stay here, and we need to put leaders in place that are cheering you on. And when I mean cheering you on, I mean mentors that understand that the point of this process is to make this person better than you, not better for business. If you are a mentor, then you need to lay out those processes and expectations that you have for the person or the people that you are mentoring. And we need open lines of communication, because if you are abusive, we need patience from you, but we also need to be able to hold you accountable. And if we don't have that access, like that open line of communication, or someone else to help hold you accountable because we're scared to talk about it, like, you need to define that for us. Mentorship doesn't mean you can be abusive. That's abuse. You don't get. So all in all, like, mentorship is incredibly important. Like, we need to knock that down we need to knock what it has been for so long, and like, bring it back to what its real definition is. We need to hire outside of meritocracy, and we need to lessen these interview standards, period.
Word, ma'am, a word.
I like what you said about the interview processes, just like creating more real dialogue and less of that like robotic, oh, well, where have you worked and what have you done, and just kind of that routine.
And wanting to hire someone because they're human, not because of what they can provide to your business or how much money they can bring in.
Yep. Like, I've just been so stuck in thought with that one, because like, a lot of us, you know, a lot of the people that I know that I grew up with that are working in this industry, and myself, my own experience, I didn't graduate. I've been failing high school since I started. So like, my vocabulary, my advocacy, my own advocacy was never there. And I only learned it the last couple of years because I'm tired of it. So like, we need to create better dialogues with the people that we're hiring, because we don't understand what professionalism is. We don't understand what you're looking for. And we also don't understand what the hell we're walking into.
So the professionalism in the hospitality industry more often than not means that image that you painted earlier, right? White with the mustache and the suspenders and whether it's usually unspoken, but I feel like, at least in my experiences, that's what kind of professionalism is that's out these days. That's not, what we're moving towards.
And in all reality, like when we go into a lot of spaces, like if we're not the white people that are behind the bars, like for the most part, they lack professionalism because they're taking shots or fucking chilling behind the bar. And like, what the fuck is that? If I knew that was going to get me this job, then I would have took a shot with you at my interview. Like, I don't know.
Because they're so entitled, like they're back there so entitled, like they don't need to be professional, and they don't even treat you with respect. And it's like, how dare you not know what chartreuse is? And like it's that. I think that's like my biggest thing that I hate about the industry is like that person that we've like described in the beginning of this thing is like, I still hate that person the most.
Wow, I totally agree with what you guys just said. I think so many times, that interview process, where have you worked, what have you done, where have you been? I think that can sometimes be used as a way to invalidate, what you've done, not as a way to, for them, prove that you belong here, but to prove that you don't belong here, and they can kind of say, oh, well, you didn't do this and you didn't, that wasn't good enough or that doesn't count. And, I've had so many of those experiences, especially in my current position where I'm young, but, I belong here and I got here on my own merit. And I think another thing is that what Michael and Leishla were saying about, the white people over there taking shots, that won't fly for me. That's not going to fly for us. And I have been I haven't been personally in situations, but I've definitely seen and learned from situations where, the white employees at the establishment, they could get away with anything. They could do anything. They could, they could come into work late, they could curse, they could blow up at customers, they could do this, they could do that, blow up at management, whatever, not do their job. I mean, anything, you name it. But the minute a person of color does something wrong, messes up, they're out the door. They're fired. They're, demoted. They, lose a bonus or, whatever it may be that, the manager or the owner can say to, oh, they yelled at somebody or, oh, they lost their temper, which, I wasn't there. Maybe they were just animated over something that, was an injustice to them and, it's being blown out of proportion. But, so you never know those situations. And I never, take things at face value if they're being told to me by, the winner in that situation, especially. But, I definitely think that what you guys just talked about is ringing very true for lots of people that I've seen. And, I think it needs to change. I think change is coming, especially after COVID, because everything's kind of, thrown on it upside down. And, I think if anything comes out of this, it'll be some real positive change.
Okay.
It's been a gift and a curse, I think. The pandemic, and COVID.
Oh, 100%. Like 100%. I mean, this needed to happen.
Especially for our industry, the way like things have been operating, I think. So the shakeup has been good.
Do we have any final statements before we head into questions from the viewers? Because it's 8:12. Do you have any other last statements?
I have one statement. Support Black-owned businesses, please.
Yes.
And not just right now, while it's trendy. We are here. We've been here. Now that like a friend of mine had to bring to my attention from my last blog post. She's like, you do know people weren't supporting because just didn't know. Like, you're correct. So now that you know that we're here, hi, welcome, please stay. Share and support. Because like I said, I can't hold it across your head for not knowing we were here because you just didn't know. But now that you know, hi, welcome, please stay.
And be patient with Black businesses. They might not have the infrastructure to get you what you want, like on demand. Like give them, especially since the demand is so high right now for all Black-owned businesses. Like,
And
Yeah.
I can speak for myself and many other Black-owned businesses. I think I posted like 3 weeks ago, I sold out, but I had 61 orders. I had never had 61 orders to fulfill at one time before. And so my inventory was based off of the work that I had been doing. I had not been doing that. So in my mind, I was stocked up for a minute. And that's so completely out. And that includes my ingredients. So I've been waiting for new ingredients for over a month because of COVID and the jackasses that won't wear masks. My business has slowed down some, so thank you. But just being patient, because understanding like we had this high demand now, we are beyond grateful. And like I said, I've never done those kind of numbers before, and it's like, ooh, I like this. But we have never had that kind of demand before. So yeah, I need time to get it together. We're grateful, but just give us a little time. Even answering emails. We are not Amazon. We don't have a call center. My business is me and solely me. So every label, sticker on the bag, every package, every email, that is solely me. And that is also the similar for other small Black-owned businesses. It's the same. It's just us. And even myself, outside of this, I have a full-time job too. It's like I'm good right now because there are no sports. So thank you for that. I have a little extra time now because sports do not exist right now. But just being patient. Share with your friends. If you're I love podcasts. If you listen to a podcast that has a Black Business of the Week, whether it be The Read, Friend Channel, Guys Next Door, Jaden XD, whoever it is, send them an email. Shout out your favorite Black-owned business.
I guess the thing I want to add is kind of like we need to like push to diversify our leaders a little bit more, like in who we look up to. And we need representation, not just for servers and bartenders or like hoteliers. Like we need representation for the line cooks. I see you, Brandon. Like sous chefs, dishwashers. We need representation for the back of house. Like we've had enough conversations surrounding the front of house. Like we need to integrate. So we need to find out how to integrate these perspectives so we can create some real and put people into positions of power that are definitely diverse.
Perfect.
Yeah. Off of that, I just want to give a shout out to the owner of North End, Big King, James Mark. Happy birthday to him today. And, he's been a great leader through example and being vocal about, things that are going on and moving forward. And, I'm not sure who said it earlier. I think it was Raeghn, but about being patient with Black-owned businesses is like so important. But, he's doing some work to consult with some to help them, gain that infrastructure that we talked about that they may not have for whatever reason or circumstance. So, just patience is so key. But I just wanted to give him a shout out, because I never have felt so comfortable in a workspace ever before in my life in these past couple of years.
Awesome.
And it was turbulent getting there, but having since been at North has been like kind of a dream world as far as like cooking and maneuvering through spaces, right, existing in my Black body. And it's really been incredible, nothing short of that. So, that's kind of all I had to share for that.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. So I do want to head over to the questions. Our first one I see, and if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, and I'll call on you, and you can open your camera and your sound to ask your question. So the first one here is from Osman Cortave, I believe. Sorry if I messed up your name. Osman, are you there?
I can tell you how to say it. That's my boyfriend.
Oh, hey.
He likes to be a part of these conversations as well. Cortave.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I'm sorry. Yep, I can hear you.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for hosting this. This has been awesome. I'm actually here with our daughter as well. So It's been and it's cool if you guys swear it's an important call, but it's been awesome. So yeah, sort of my question, and I think it's an important one for everyone. Like, I can only speak my experience as a Latino male, but one thing that's really helped me has been like being exposed to like different things. And I know that's sort of like general, but it helps. I feel like it helps open up your world. And I guess my question is, for the panel is, where do you guys go for like everyday inspiration, or to just like, yes, just to see different things that like that drive you and help you create. I think that'd be really helpful for anyone starting up.
I think what for me is, and I think I can speak for a lot of folks, is like to try to think of like on stories and like how did I get to where I am now, and then when it comes to like you said, like being introduced to new things, like I'm always looking at, even if it's something new, it can be completely new or it could be something that's old that I'm new to. Like I'm always looking at stuff like, well, this is cool, you know, like, but how would I be, especially if it's something different and like a shell, an easy way to do something. Well, how can I present this to my brother that would know that, all right, this is daft, like, this is cool, this is something you should do. And I say that because I have a twin brother who's not in the industry. So like when I introduce him to something that's brand new, his first reaction is to be like, you know, like, nah, what's this stuff I'm gonna like? Or like he's very standoffish, but my thing is like, well, I know you're gonna like this, but like, how can I make this thing that basically wasn't created with us in mind? Like, how can I take this and present it to you so you'll be accepting of it and you'll feel like you deserve to try something like this? And I think I tie that within, again, with like storytelling, and like how can I connect to this one thing? So that's what I try to look for.
I really feel the point about storytelling. Like for me, it's what feels good. How did this experience, how did this cocktail, this bite of food, how did it make me feel? So that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from. I really try to hone in on anything that I'm experiencing. You know, my emotions while I'm in that space. Do I feel good? Do I feel anxious or scared? And that's for me where I build a lot of my inspiration from.
Something that I'll say is, and I know this is not for everyone, but when I first moved to Providence, I actually did a lot of stages. Anyone that's not in the industry that doesn't know what that is, basically you work for free. And I know that's probably not what we want to be talking about right now, but I staged at a lot of places. And as I progressed in Providence and kind of found out about other things happening, I just volunteered, a lot. And I volunteered at, Farm Fresh, Rhode Island events, volunteered at, Chefs Collaborative events, volunteered at, any events, kind of was everywhere. And anyone that's on this call that knows me from Rhode Island probably knows that I was like that probably crazy lady that's like always there. Like whatever event's happening, I'm there. If it's in food and hospitality, And so, that's something that I did, and that allowed me to have a lot of experiences where, I didn't have to pay a lot of money. So I don't really go out to restaurants that much because, I always try and work. And if I'm not working, like I said, I like to volunteer so I can experience things for free. So that's something that Hope's Harvest. Woohoo! I love Hope's Harvest. Please volunteer with them. That's something that worked for me. And anytime that I was able to bring people in when I knew there were more volunteer slots, Brandon can definitely attest to this. He actually drove out to New York to do an event with me. And, I always just try and spread the word, spread the message. And if anyone could, if I could help them out in any way, that's what I did for inspiration.
Prime example, you connected Amber and I, and that's been incredible. And cool to be here. Yeah. It's been a little tough, man, with the I think Raeghn was saying, just being inspired by how you feel in certain moments in life, and with the whole COVID, I feel like initially it's like, these moments are no longer around, but I feel like they are. You kind of have to dig and look for them a little more. But for me, that's been recently a little tough sometimes, being inspired, not being able to go into certain spaces and enjoy a drink or a meal or meeting with certain people, getting that community feel that you get from our industry functioning. And what I've been trying to do lately is try and get back into and more into reading and stories and storytelling and thinking about my story and just hearing other people's narratives to try and draw inspiration through these times, as well as just movement, physically, mentally.
Awesome.
It's been tough.
All right. Our next question comes from Lisa Nguyen. Where is Lisa? Let's see if she is still on here. Scrolling through. Lisa, if you're still on, you can unmute yourself. There you are. Uh-oh. Hi, Lisa. Okay, see, she's unmuted. Okay, I'll ask her question for her. So she said, how can we stand up for our coworkers when we witness racism in the workplace? What is the most effective way to protect ourselves and each other?
I think that has a lot to do, that's going to have to start with what kind of culture you have in your workplace, what kind of management you have. Do you have that support? Because it shouldn't just be on you alone. That's hard. Yes, stand up for yourself. Yes, stand up for your coworker. But if you don't have like the support of the decision makers, that's a really tough choice. So if you have any influence in your establishment, your organization, to ask for training, ask for training. See if that, and justify it, especially if it's a business. I would say justify the cost of whatever that training is, for the safety and longevity of your staff, for like being able to take care of your customers better, that kind of thing. Because a lot of times, especially for small businesses, it's hard to justify training, even though that kind of training is trending right now, right? We talked about that earlier. I think that's a really important investment. And like a lot of times we don't talk about like staff retention, and that's like protecting your staff is really important. But even from like a financial standpoint, like keeping your staff and making sure they feel safe and whole, especially if they're POC, that also widens your audience, that widens like who they're going to be bringing in to who's the people who want to come in and sit at your bar. But I think that it's tough. There's a lot of ways you can develop your own language and learn the language and vocabulary to defend yourself and your coworkers. But unless you also have the support of the establishment, it's really tough.
I'd also say if you're going to bring up accounts of racism to your establishment and you feel like they aren't going to be supportive or listen to your claim, to put things in writing. So send an email, because then you have proof that you said something, that you tried to advocate for yourself, and either they shut you down or ignored you. That would protect you, especially if these cases of racism or abuse in your workplace continue. Go away.
Yeah, and I guess just having a relationship, a deep relationship with your coworkers, I feel like the camaraderie aspect, I feel like we wouldn't make any instances that would happen, like we wouldn't make that up. So they should kind of support and have your back, especially if they care about you and love you. So, I don't know if that actually answered.
Yeah, it does. Okay. Anyone? I think we have one more question in the chat from, where'd it go? Bean. Are you there? Let's see.
I don't know if you can hear me, can you?
Yep, I can hear you. It's just a little low.
Okay, because I have the fan and the air conditioner on, so apologize. So my question basically is, as a Black woman trying to start a business in Providence, how can we create more spaces that encourage Black and Brown collaborative?
I mean, from the perspective of white businesses, I would say ask for Black and Brown people to collaborate with you and show up with coin. Don't ask for free labor.
Yeah.
Ask, collaborate, and open your pockets. And then from the perspective of like a Black-owned or brown-owned business, just say advocate for yourself and advocate for your business and know that you are worth it and that you bring value to the table. So they should be eager and open and ready to collaborate with you. You're dope.
Yeah. And just to echo that, especially being in Providence loves a good collaboration. So going off of that, you want to definitely make sure that you collaborate with someone that aligns with you, not just you, but your brand and your actual product. Because of course you want to support other Black-owned businesses in the same lane as you, but sometimes your branding or your product, it simply just does not align. And that's okay. You can still support each other, but you don't have to collaborate with each other. So finding someone that aligns with you and your product and your brand is incredibly important. And using your circle around you to promote it too, because no one can support you if they don't know what's happening. So support, actually promotion has to be heavy. To echo the other statement as well, like I personally do not believe in free labor. So whether you're offering the other person a part of the proceeds or a promotion or actual product itself, just or free whatever product that you have. If you guys barter something between each other, no one should be providing free labor. Whether it's from the flyer to the shared space or whatever, whether you guys decide to just share to split the cost of it, you have to put your own skin in the game.
Yeah.
That is incredibly important. You have to put some of your own skin in the game, whether it be money or product, your time. You can't come in there just be like, hey, I want to do this, and just like, cool, I'll have this, but I need to do all this. It has to be fair.
Yeah. And I think Troop has done a pretty good job of that, because I'm not in there super often, but every time I'm there, I'm pretty keen and observant to crowds when I go out to places. Just I'm sure all of you are too, just because that's kind of how it is. And the majority at Troop is always like BIPOC people. So I think they, to give them credit, have done a really good job at collaborations and just I guess word of mouth with other Black-owned businesses and BIPOC and across different industries.
And I would say even outside of collaborations, you as an individual business, you have to be audacious in your own branding. So even me with my business, like I created this because I saw a niche and I saw something that I wanted, and I didn't want to wait for someone else to create it, because I know that if I wait for someone else to do something, it's not going to happen. So you have to be audacious and kicking down the door and says, hey, I'm here, and establishing your own brand, because when people see or hear a certain word or a trigger word, they're going to think of you instantly. So you'd want to make sure that you actually are really pushing, even if you have a collaboration, you still want to find a way to really push your individual brand as well. But it's hard. I was saying another thing too, when you look for branding, for collaborations, your individual brand needs to be so strong that in this collaboration, you don't get lost in that.
Yeah, that's deep. That makes sense.
All right, anybody else? Cool. So I see another question from Camilla. Are you there?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much, everybody, for speaking. I think the fact that we can have a space like this at the moment with so many other great leaders and so many people that are doing the work to undo white supremacy within the restaurant industry is so, so important. I just kind of wanted to talk as a non-Black person that has worked in the restaurant industry for so long. How would you address internalized white supremacy from non-Black POCs that are in leadership in the restaurant industry. I personally worked in a South American restaurant under leadership of POCs that anytime I called out racism, their response was constantly like, I can't be racist. I'm a person of color. And that was really hard to try to call out other Latino servers on using the N-word constantly and realizing that, shared identity does not equal shared experience. So I just kind of wanted to get your point of view on, how do we bring these points up apart from a lot of the businesses that I see doing this work are in a really privileged situation of who comes into their environments to be like-minded. But I see a lot of these other industries in Broad Street or in Central Falls that are not getting this kind of vocabulary. So how do we liberate all of these other places as well,
That's hard because I felt that question so hard as an Asian American person who has clung to my proximity to whiteness for most of my life until the last, say, 5-10 years when and that was a lot of work for myself to, deconstruct a lot of those internalized prejudices, right? Understanding that that's where it's coming from first, that's what they're trying to cling to is their proximity to whiteness, and that we are at least, we might be not white, but we're not brown, we're not that brown or that Black. But that seems to me personally, and this is coming kind of from a privileged POV, that would be a hard space to continue to work in. And if it is a space that you have brought it up and nobody feels the need to change or nobody sees the damage, you got to kind of question how much is it worth of yourself to invest in it, right? And that shouldn't be just on like I said, when I brought up how do you stand up for your coworkers and things that can't just be from you. So unless you have other support to back you, that's just going to be an uphill battle. And then and then it becomes kind of a question of, is that space worth your time and your effort? That's for me that's from a very privileged perspective, in that maybe that's not a viable choice financially to be able to walk away from. But that's real.
I want to add, first off, I've been wanting to talk, but I have my neighbors are making a deck outside and they just started sawing away. So I couldn't. But to answer that question, hi Camila, I hope you're well. I think so, to have this kind of language be accessible to people in this industry, I think that when we were talking about how do we get more Black and brown people to collab, how do we get more of these spaces, make more of these things happen, what I think Raeghn was saying earlier was that, or one of you were saying, I'm sorry, I can't remember who was saying it, but to make sure that you're doing work on the other side of town, not that side of town that you're comfortable with and that you're so used to, so you can create those connections and then create these there's this thing called USBG, which is the United States Bartenders Guild. It's a group of people that meet, but it's usually pretty exclusive to bartenders. We need to create a hospitality, all-encompassing hospitality group in each city, however it is, to have these conversations that are not just people that are in news articles or in really great bars or a server at a fine dining establishment. We need to go to the places that are disinvested and have these conversations, be hey, do you want to join this group so you could be a part of these really great conversations? And even if you don't understand it right now, we can all talk about it and understand it together. I don't know. I think that we need better support for the industry. And I think that if you have the time, if you have the space, the mental capacity, I think it'd be an important start to get the support for these people to understand that we need to walk away from spaces that are that abusive and that are bringing to that white identity. But yeah, that's my thought.
I would also,
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say one thing that I think was really interesting for me and my findings. So not specifically geared towards hospitality or restaurants, but something that came out of, I mean, you know, kind of Gen Zs, millennials, you know, following all the protests and the movements that were happening surrounding George Floyd's death, was that there came out a lot of, you know, letters that were written by, you know, Gen Z, you know, kids that were, you know, the kids of immigrants that were people of color, but were not Black. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, maybe to find some of that language and, you know, maybe have a little context for, you know, potentially having that conversation down the road, you can take a look at those things. I mean, there's, you know, letters to Vietnamese parents, letters to Chinese parents, letters to Mexican parents, you know, I mean, there's a lot of those types of essays and stuff floating around on the internet that you might be able to find some instances in some ways that you can relate to, you know, that person and, you know, maybe pull from what those kids are saying to use it in the situation that you may find yourself in, dealing with, you know, a manager or a person that is, you know, in a position of power that is a non-Black person of color that is, you know, perpetuating white supremacy. So, you know, that's just something that I found in, you know, some of the podcasts and readings that I've been listening to and finding on the internet. So I'm sure if you take a look, you'll be able to find some of those things to maybe help you find some of those words.
Real quickly, just one of the things that that I've done to protect my own space, kind of going back off of what Mary said, like their behavior might be internalized. Like you might not be the person to drag them out of their anti-Blackness or their internalized racism. You just might not be that person. But you can completely protect your space. And that's something that I've done in workplaces. It's like, oh, okay, you think as a non-Black person, you're entitled to say the N-word because for whatever reason, or you think that these sexist jokes are funny. Nothing I say can change your opinion of that. But that language is not okay around me. So when we are working alongside each other, when I'm in the kitchen, when we're, you know, working behind the bar together, that language is not all right around me, because every time you use the N-word or you make those jokes, I call you out and I make it very uncomfortable for both of us. And so at the very least, I'm protecting my space so that I don't have to be like around that type of behavior, that type of language.
Thank you, guys. I think that was the last question. So thank you all again for being here. For the panelists, you all were incredible. Thank you so much for even the time to come and be here. Do any of the panelists have anything to plug, any events, anything to promote? I know, Mike, you guys with Mixer, you have a box out now. Where's Mike?
I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, my girlfriend and I launched a cocktail to-go company called Mixer. So we just send people everything except the booze, because if you're an adult, you already have booze in your home. And we just send you the syrups, the juices, the garnishes, the tools to make the stuff, the instructions, and we deliver it right to your door.
Well, anyone else?
You can check us out on mixercocktails.com. Our website is live. Please support us.
Anyone else got something to plug before we head on out?
I'm not selling anything, but I promote. I try to make cocktails, like classic cocktails, on my social media page, especially more recently as I'm home until I can get back to work. So if y'all want to like find out how to make a cocktail, I've been doing that every Sunday, Friday or Sunday. I think the last 2 weeks have been Sundays. But yeah, it's just like I'm follow, do that. It's fun.
New norm, right? Like bartending from home.
Yeah, same. I'm just creating cocktail videos and stuff, but I've also become a TikTok creator recently, which is a very cool thing.
What's that?
Yes. But hey, I'm trying to get that money, whatever. So yeah, you guys can follow at Mixtress Mary is all my handles.
Cool. I guess the last one is me. So I've been sold out for a minute. Thank you very much. But after over a month of waiting for ingredients, they're supposed to be here this Thursday. So I'll have a full restock for you sometime next week. I'm not going to lie. I'm doing absolutely nothing this weekend or next weekend because it's my birthday weekend. I'll be 29 next Sunday, so I'm doing nothing. But other than that, yeah.
I have one more thing. I can't talk about it technically yet, but I do. If you guys follow on my Instagram, next week I do have an event that I'm going to be a part of. It's highlighting women of color in the various industries. It's not just hospitality focused. I believe that the first person that they're talking to is an actress of sorts. So if you guys follow me on social media, stay tuned. I'll be making some cocktails there too.
Dope.
That's amazing.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys for joining. Follow all the panelists on the Instagram pages. I will post it again on my IG story, so you have everyone's Instagram to connect with them outside of this if you choose to. This is recorded, so I will be posting this on the YouTube page either tomorrow or the day after, whenever I have a chance to sit down and edit this all out. If you have any further questions, you can contact me or the panelists directly through IG. Thank you again for being here. And the Rona is still out there. Wear your mask. Be safe. Wash your hands. For some people, it's a pandemic. Folks are still not washing their hands. Please be safe. Protect yourself and the ones around you. A lot of people out here in Providence, a lot of bars are open and doing takeouts. Please tip your bartenders. Please tip your waitresses. And these to-go windows. Please, please, please tip them. Support them fully. Do not ask for a discount during the pandemic. Let's start. Please don't do that. Once again, thank you so much for the panelists to be here. You can catch us later on my YouTube channel. I will post that in the IG as well. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Be good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Look forward to the next one.
Stories, cool.
Also down to collaborate with anybody.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be dope.
Just putting that out there.
Shouldn't miss anybody. All right, heading out.